My wife texted, "Cleaned out the safe. Starting fresh with Jake." I replied, "Enjoy the cash." What she didn't know was I'd replaced it all with counterfeit bills. The Secret Service visit was enlightening. I, 42 male, always believed a marriage was built on trust, but fortified by prudence. I manage risk for a living, and for 20 years with Amelia, 39, I thought our biggest risk was a fluctuating stock market. I was wrong. The real risk was the slow, creeping rot of entitlement I had failed to price in. Our life was comfortable, a product of my long hours and careful investments. Amelia hadn't worked since our son left for college 5 years ago, instead filling her days with charity lunches, boutique shopping, and a growing sense of dissatisfaction I could never quite pinpoint. The distance between us had become a quiet, unacknowledged chasm. The first tremor came 3 months ago. I was setting up a new security camera in our home office and was reviewing the footage to check the angle. The camera had also recorded audio. I listened back and heard Amelia on the phone, her voice low and excited, a tone I hadn't heard directed at me in years. "No, he has no idea, Jake. The safe is the main thing," she'd said. "He keeps at least 100 grand in there. Emergency fund, he calls it. It'll be our emergency fund." A giddy laugh followed. "Once we have that, we can disappear. Start fresh. God, I can't wait to be free of this boring, predictable life." Jake? The name hit me like a physical blow. Jake was our personal trainer, a handsome, cliché-ridden charlatan half her age with cheap tattoos and an expensive smile. My blood ran cold, but panic is a luxury my profession doesn't allow. The hurt was immense, a deep, tectonic shift in my soul. But on the surface, a cold, hard clarity took over. She didn't want a divorce. She wanted to rob me and run. This wasn't a marital dispute. It was a heist. My immediate impulse was to confront her, to scream, to shatter the facade of our life. But that would have been an emotional, irrational act. Instead, I operated on logic. She had shown me her plan. Now I would draft my response. For 2 weeks, I lived a lie, pretending everything was normal while I moved my pieces into place. Step 1 was the safe. I went to the bank and withdrew the entire $100,000 in cash. I photographed the stacks of bills, the serial numbers, and the withdrawal slip. Then I deposited the entire sum into a new account under my name only. Step 2 required some research. I found a company online that produces high-grade prop money for Hollywood productions. It looks and feels remarkably real, but each bill is clearly marked for motion picture use only in small print, and they are not illegal to own, only to pass as legal tender. I ordered $100,000 in prop hundreds. When the package arrived, I carefully stacked the counterfeit bills and placed them in the safe, exactly where the real money had been. Step 3 was documentation. I saved the audio file from the security camera. I kept the receipt for the prop money. I built a silent, methodical case, waiting for her to make her move. The text came last Tuesday, while I was in a quarterly budget meeting. "Amelia, cleaned out the safe. Starting fresh with Jake. Don't try to find me." I stared at the message, a declaration of war sent from the front lines of her betrayal. The rage was there, simmering deep below, but my training took over. I thought about her and Jake, somewhere on the road, giddy with their newfound wealth, believing they had pulled off the perfect crime. I typed my reply, each word a cold, deliberate choice. Me, enjoy the cash. Then I went back to my meeting. When it concluded, I initiated my protocol. Credit cards. I logged into my banking portal. Amelia was an authorized user on 3 of my high-limit credit cards. Click, click, click. User no longer authorized. I reported the cards as being in the possession of a person no longer approved to use them. They were deactivated instantly. Locks. I called a 24-hour locksmith and arranged for every lock on our house to be changed that evening. Lawyer. I forwarded a screenshot of Amelia's text to my lawyer, a man I'd retained for business, but who also specialized in contentious divorces. My email was brief. "David, please see attached. Amelia has abandoned the marriage and absconded with what she believes to be a significant marital asset. Please begin divorce proceedings immediately on the grounds of abandonment and infidelity. I will call you tomorrow." Passwords. I spent 30 minutes methodically changing every password to every shared service we had. Streaming accounts, online shopping, everything was in my name. I went home to a house that was eerily quiet. Her closet was half empty, her jewelry box gone. The door to my home office stood open. The heavy steel door of the safe swung wide. It was empty, just as I knew it would be. I felt a strange sense of calm. The trap was set. The waiting was the hardest part. 72 hours later, on a Friday afternoon, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened it to find two people, a man and a woman, dressed in sharp, conservative suits. They didn't look like salespeople. "Marcus Thorne?" the man asked, his voice flat and official. He held up a leather wallet, flipping it open to reveal a badge. "Agent Kyler, United States Secret Service. This is Agent Chen. May we have a word?" My heart hammered against my ribs, but I kept my composure. This was it. The time bomb had detonated. "Of course, agents. Please come in." They stepped into the foyer, their eyes sweeping the room, taking in every detail. We sat in the living room, the space Amelia had spent a fortune decorating, now feeling like a cold, impersonal hotel lobby. "Mr. Thorne," Agent Kyler began, "we're here to ask you some questions about your wife, Amelia Thorne." "I assume you mean my soon-to-be ex-wife," I said calmly. "What about her?" "She and a man named Jake Rossi were arrested this morning in Las Vegas," Agent Chen said, picking up the thread. "They attempted to purchase a vehicle from a used car dealership with a substantial amount of cash. The dealership manager became suspicious of the bills and alerted the authorities. The bills were determined to be counterfeit." I nodded slowly, letting them lead. "I see. That is unfortunate for them." Agent Kyler leaned forward slightly, his gaze intense. "The amount was $100,000, Mr. Thorne. When questioned, your wife claimed she got the money from a personal safe in this house. She was under the impression it was real." This was the moment. My entire defense rested on the next few minutes. I took a deep breath. "Agents, what I'm about to tell you may sound unusual, but I have documented every step of the process. I am the victim of a planned theft. The counterfeit money was my insurance policy." For the next 30 minutes, I laid out the entire story. I told them about the growing distance in my marriage, my suspicions, and the damning audio I had discovered from my security camera. I played the recording for them, right there on my phone. I showed them the bank statements for the withdrawal of the real $100,000 and the subsequent deposit into a new secure account. I showed them the dated receipt for the purchase of the motion picture prop money. Finally, I showed them the text message Amelia had sent me. Agent Chen read it and looked up, a flicker of something, surprise, respect in her eyes. "And your reply was, 'Enjoy the cash.'" I felt it was appropriate under the circumstances, I said. She was welcome to the paper, but not my money. Agent Kyler sat back, a long, slow exhale escaping his lips. "Mr. Thorne, passing counterfeit currency is a serious federal offense. We were investigating you as the potential source of these bills." "I understand," I replied, "but I never passed them. I placed non-negotiable prop currency, which is legal to own, inside my own locked safe in my own home. My wife, without my knowledge or consent, stole that property and, along with her accomplice, transported it across state lines and attempted to use it as legal tender. By her own texted admission, she thought she was stealing real money. Her intent was to defraud me. Her subsequent actions were, I believe, entirely her own responsibility." The two agents exchanged a look. They knew I was right. My story was not only plausible, it was meticulously, irrefutably documented. I was not the perpetrator. I was the victim who had outsmarted his attacker. The visit became far more enlightening when they told me about Jake. He wasn't just a personal trainer. He had a history. 2 prior convictions for fraud, a history of seducing and swindling wealthy, dissatisfied women. Amelia wasn't his partner, she was his mark and his ticket to what she thought was my fortune. Her plan to start fresh was just his latest scam. She was the getaway driver and the bank, all in one. "Your wife's testimony was that you were a controlling, abusive husband, and she was taking money she was owed to escape," Agent Kyler stated, watching my reaction. "A classic defense for a con artist's accomplice," I countered. "I have 2 decades of financial records showing the lifestyle I provided her. There is no history of abuse. There is, however, a recording of her laughing about stealing from me." They left an hour later, taking copies of all my evidence. They made it clear I would be a material witness in their case against Jake and, to a lesser extent, Amelia. As I closed the door behind them, the adrenaline finally subsided, replaced by a profound, hollow sense of vindication. She wanted a new life. Now, the federal government was going to give her one. Update 1. The fallout has been swift and chaotic. Amelia was released on bail, paid for by her bewildered parents, who had to take out a second mortgage on their home. Jake, being a flight risk with a criminal record, was denied bail. He remains in federal custody. Amelia's one phone call from jail was not to a lawyer but to me. I let it go to voicemail. The message was a frantic, tearful tirade. It was a masterclass in deflection. "Marcus, how could you? You set me up. You know I wouldn't. It was your money. I was entitled to it. You have to fix this. Call your lawyers, call the police, tell them it was a misunderstanding. You've ruined my life." Not a word of apology, not a hint of remorse, only the pure, uncut entitlement of a person who has never faced a real consequence. Her life was ruined not by her actions, adultery, theft, conspiracy, but by me refusing to be a victim. I forwarded the voicemail to my lawyer, who advised me to file a restraining order, which I did. Then came the calls from her family. Her mother, Eileen, called me weeping, accusing me of being a cruel, vindictive monster for entrapping her daughter. "She made a mistake, Marcus. She fell in with a bad person. You're her husband. You're supposed to protect her, not send her to prison." "Eileen," I said, my voice cold as ice, "I stopped being her husband the moment she decided to rob me and run away with another man. She made her own choices. She chose to steal. She chose to lie. And she chose to try and spend counterfeit money. Her consequences are her own." Her father was next. He tried to bluster and threaten, talking about hiring lawyers to sue me for emotional distress and malicious entrapment. "Go ahead," I told him. "I'm sure the U.S. Attorney's Office will be very interested in your civil suit against their star witness. Be sure to have your lawyer subpoena the recording of Amelia laughing about how she was robbing me. I'm sure that will play well in court." Silence. The threats stopped. They genuinely believed they could bully me into undoing the reality Amelia had created for herself. They were wrong. Final update. The last 8 months have been a slow, grinding process of legal disentanglement. The divorce was finalized 3 months ago. It was surprisingly uncontested. Faced with a mountain of evidence of her abandonment, infidelity, and the pending federal felony charges, her legal position was untenable. The judge awarded me a heavily favorable settlement. She walked away with almost nothing, as her criminal actions were seen as a profound breach of marital trust, effectively nullifying her claim to spousal support. The federal case concluded last month. Jake Rossi, facing a long sentence as a repeat offender, took a plea deal and agreed to testify against his other co-conspirators in unrelated scams. He was sentenced to 7 years in a federal penitentiary. Amelia's fate was the talk of our old social circle. Faced with overwhelming evidence, including my testimony and Jake turning on her to save himself, she pled guilty. The judge showed some leniency for her being a first-time offender and likely manipulated by a career criminal. She avoided prison time. Her sentence was 5 years of probation, a $10,000 fine, and 500 hours of community service. And of course, a permanent felony conviction on her record. The aftermath for her has been a complete societal and familial collapse. Her friends from the country club vanished. Her parents, financially crippled by her legal fees, are treating her with resentful obligation. I heard she's living in their basement. The felony conviction makes finding any meaningful employment nearly impossible. She is a pariah, a cautionary tale whispered at charity galas. As for me, I sold the house, erasing the last ghost of our shared life. I took a portion of the money from the safe, the real money, and went on a solo trip through Southeast Asia, something I'd always wanted to do, but Amelia had always dismissed as too rustic. The revenge wasn't loud or explosive. It was quiet, methodical, and absolute. It was the simple, logical consequence of her own actions. She thought she was running off with $100,000 and a new life. Instead, she ran headfirst into a federal sting I didn't even have to orchestrate. She wanted to start fresh with Jake. She got a fresh start, a new life with a criminal record, no money, and no prospects. She gambled our 20-year marriage for a fool's treasure and lost everything. I simply let her. And in doing so, I saved myself. The best risk mitigation I ever executed.